Think about someone you know, someone who has been at the same company for 5 years, maybe 10. They show up every day, they do good work, they've never been fired, and they feel secure. They feel like they've built something stable. Now ask yourself, how many of those people do you think will have the same job in 5 years? Because the world they built that stability in no longer exists. Hey, I'm Carl, and if you're new here, welcome. This channel is everything I wish someone had explained to me when I was younger. No complicated theory, no guru talk. Just honest, straight to the point. Explained the way an older brother would explain it. Today we're talking about something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Your job. Specifically, the idea that a stable job is enough. That if you just show up, work hard, and don't cause problems, you'll be okay. I believed that for a long time. And I was wrong. Not because I'm pessimistic, not because I think everything is falling apart, but because the evidence is everywhere and most people are not paying attention to it. A few years ago, I was in a job I felt good about. Steady income, clear responsibilities, good enough company. I wasn't in love with it, but it felt solid, and solid felt like enough. I wasn't thinking about building anything else. I wasn't thinking about skills I might need in 5 years. I was just showing up and assuming that as long as I kept doing that, I'd be fine. And then I started noticing things. People around me were losing jobs they had held for years, not because they were bad at them, not because the company was failing, but because a tool, a system, a piece of software could now do what they did, faster, cheaper, without taking a lunch break. And I remember the specific moment it stopped feeling abstract to me. A colleague I respected, smart, experienced, good at their job, got a meeting request from their manager on a Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, their desk was empty. Not because of performance, not because of behavior, just because the company had found a way to do what they did without them. And I sat at my desk that afternoon and thought, what exactly makes me different? What do I have that cannot be replaced by the same thing that just replaced them? I didn't have a good answer, and that scared me more than anything had in a long time. So let me tell you what is actually happening, because I think most people have a vague sense that things are changing. But vague doesn't prepare you for anything. Specific does. Artificial intelligence is not coming for jobs in some distant future. It is already here. And it is not just replacing factory workers or call center staff. Those were the first wave. The second wave is already happening. It is moving into knowledge work. The jobs that require a degree. The jobs that sit behind a desk. The jobs that used to feel safe precisely because they required education and training. Lawyers using AI to draft documents in minutes that used to take hours. Accountants finding that software can now do analysis that required a junior team. Marketers discovering that tools can write, design, and test campaigns faster than any human can. Journalists, analysts, developers, designers. The list is not shrinking, it is growing every single month. And I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying it because understanding what is actually happening is the first step to doing something about it. The people who are most at risk right now are not the ones who lack intelligence. They're the ones who assumed their current skill set would always be valuable, who assumed the thing they were trained to do 5 years ago would still be the thing companies need in 5 more. That assumption is costing people everything. And the people who are least at risk are the ones who stopped assuming and started adapting. Now let me talk about the second thing. Because even if AI never touches your specific job, even if you work in an industry that changes slowly, there is still a problem with relying on a single job as your financial foundation. And it's not a new problem, but it's one that most people don't take seriously until it's too late. A job is not a foundation, it's a contract, and contracts end. Sometimes with notice, sometimes without. Sometimes because you did something wrong, but often, more often than people realize, because of things that have nothing to do with you at all. The company loses a client, the industry shifts, a new CEO comes in and restructures. The economy turns, and one day you get a meeting request on a Tuesday afternoon. And by Wednesday morning, you're updating your CV wondering how to explain a gap. I've seen it happen to people who deserved better. People who were loyal, skilled, committed. None of that protected them. Because loyalty to a company is not a financial strategy. It is a feeling. And feelings don't pay rent. The uncomfortable truth is this. Every single person who relies on one job as their only source of income is one decision made by someone else in a meeting they were not in away from financial chaos. That is not stability. That is fragility dressed up as security. And most people don't realize the difference until they're standing in it. So what do you actually do? Because I'm not here to just tell you what's wrong. Carl's job, and the reason this channel exists, is to tell you what you do about it. And the answer starts with understanding something that most people in traditional employment have never been taught. Your most valuable asset is not your job title. It is not your degree. It is not your years of experience at any single company. Your most valuable asset is what you can do. Specifically, what you can do that is hard to automate and hard to replace. And there are certain skills that fall into that category, not because they require a specific technical background, but because they require something that machines are still genuinely bad at: human judgment, relationship building, the ability to walk into a room and understand what someone actually needs, not just what they say they need, sales, not aggressive selling, but the ability to understand people, build trust, and help them make decisions. That skill is everywhere. Every company needs it, and no algorithm has figured out how to replicate it at the human level. Leadership. The ability to take a group of different people with different motivations and move them toward a shared goal. That is not something you can prompt into existence. Creative problem solving. Not just coming up with ideas, but understanding context, constraints, and consequences well enough to find solutions that actually work in the real world. Communication. The ability to explain complex things simply. To write in a way that makes people feel something. To speak in a way that makes people trust you. These are not soft skills in the dismissive sense that people used to mean. These are the skills that will determine who thrives in the next 10 years. And the good news? Every single one of them can be developed, not overnight, but consistently, over time, starting now. So now you understand what is happening, and you understand why a single job is not a foundation. Now let's talk about what you actually build instead, because this is where most people stop. They hear, build multiple income streams, and they picture someone juggling 3 jobs while sleeping 4 hours a night. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something much more specific and much more achievable than most people think. The goal is not to replace your job tomorrow. The goal is to make sure that if your job disappeared tomorrow, you would not be starting from zero. There is a massive difference between those two things. One feels impossible. The other is just a decision. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, you have something extremely valuable. You have time, not unlimited time, not stress-free time. But somewhere in your week, there are hours that are not being used to build anything. Hours spent scrolling. Hours spent watching things that don't move you forward. Hours that feel like rest, but often leave you feeling more empty than when you started. I'm not saying rest is bad. Rest is necessary. But there is a difference between rest that restores you and distraction that just passes time. And most people are spending far more time on the second one than they realize. Now, I'm not going to tell you to wake up at 5 in the morning. I'm not going to tell you to grind every spare minute. But I am going to ask you a question. If you took just 5 hours a week, just 5, and pointed them at something that was building a skill or a second income, what could that look like in 12 months? Because 5 hours a week is 40 minutes a day. That is 1 episode of whatever you're watching before bed. And over a year, that is 260 hours. 260 hours of deliberate practice or deliberate building. That is enough to learn a marketable skill from scratch. That is enough to start a freelance service and land your first clients. That is enough to build something small that makes money. Not life-changing money necessarily. Not quit your job money. Just proof of concept money. And proof of concept is all you need to start. Because the first $200 you make from something outside your job changes how you see yourself. You stop being someone who has a job. You start being someone who can create income. And that identity shift is worth more than the $200. So what do you actually build? Let me give you the categories that make the most sense for most people starting from scratch. The first is service-based income. This means getting paid for something you can already do, or something you can learn to do in a few months. Copywriting, video editing, social media management, web design, bookkeeping, tutoring, consulting in whatever field you already work in. The barrier to entry is lower than it has ever been. You don't need a business registration. You don't need an office. You need a skill, a laptop, and the ability to find one person who needs what you offer. One client. That's the whole starting point. And one client leads to two. Two leads to a portfolio. A portfolio leads to rates you can actually charge. The second category is content. And I want to be honest with you here. Content takes longer than people expect. If you start a YouTube channel or a newsletter or any kind of content platform expecting money in 6 months, you will probably be disappointed. But content compounds in a way that almost nothing else does. A video you make today can be watched by someone 2 years from now. An article you write this month can generate income for years without you touching it again. The work you put in now keeps paying you later. And for certain types of people who enjoy explaining things, who have a specific area of knowledge or experience, who can be consistent over time, content is one of the most powerful things you can build. The third category is investing. And I've talked about this before on this channel. But in the context of this video, it's worth saying again. Every month that you have money sitting in a savings account doing nothing is a month where your money is not working for you. An index fund, a simple, boring, long-term investment. This is not exciting. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it is your money working while you sleep, and that matters enormously over time. Even small amounts, even 50 euros a month, because the habit is more important than the amount when you're starting. The habit of making your money do something is what separates people who build wealth from people who always feel like they're almost there, but never quite arrive. Now let me talk about something that connects all of this, because it's the thing most people skip, and it's the reason most people who try to build something on the side give up within 3 months. You need a reason that is bigger than motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation is high when you start something new. And it fades. It fades when you're tired after work. It fades when you've been building for 2 months and nothing has happened yet. It fades when your friends are going out and you're sitting at a laptop trying to figure out why nobody is clicking on your content. Motivation fades, but clarity doesn't. If you know exactly why you're doing this, if you can look at the alternative clearly and feel it in your chest, that doesn't fade the same way. So let me ask you something directly. What happens if you don't do this? Not in a vague way, specifically. If you spend the next 5 years exactly as you've spent the last 5, where are you? Same job, same income, same financial position, maybe a bit more experience, but fundamentally, the same. Is that okay with you? Because for some people it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you've watched this far, it's probably not okay with you, and if it's not okay with you, then the question is not whether you should build something. The question is what you're waiting for, because the conditions are never going to be perfect. There will never be a month where you have extra time and extra energy and zero stress and complete clarity about what to do. That month doesn't exist. The people who build things build them in the same messy, busy, uncertain life that everyone else has. They just decided that waiting for perfect conditions was more expensive than starting in imperfect ones. And they were right. So now you have the picture. The job market is changing faster than most people are willing to admit. A single income is fragile in a way that feels safe until it isn't. And the window to start building something alongside what you already have is right now, not next year. Not when things calm down, not when you feel ready, now. Because here is what I want you to understand about timing. The people who are going to be okay in 10 years are not going to be the ones who had the best jobs in 2025. They are going to be the ones who started building in 2025. While everyone else was watching and waiting and hoping things wouldn't change too much. Change is not coming. It is here. And how you respond to it in the next 12 months will matter more than almost any other financial decision you make. So let me bring this all together and give you something concrete to walk away with. Because Carl's job is not just to tell you what's happening, it's to tell you what to do about it. Step 1. Audit your skills honestly, not the skills on your CV. Your actual skills. What can you do right now that someone would pay for? Not in a job context, in a direct exchange context. If you had to go out tomorrow and find someone to pay you for something, what would that something be? If you have an answer, that is your starting point. If you don't have an answer, that is the most important thing you need to work on. Pick one skill. 1, not 5, not a whole plan. One skill that you either have or can develop in the next 3 to 6 months and point everything at it. Because focus beats breadth every single time when you're starting from nothing. Step 2, identify your 5 hours. Go through your week honestly. Not the week you wish you had, the actual week you have. Where are the 5 hours? Maybe it's the hour before work. Maybe it's Saturday mornings. Maybe it's the 40 minutes before you go to sleep that you currently spend on your phone. Find them, write them down, and protect them like they matter. Because they do. More than most things you are currently spending that time on. Step 3. Start before you're ready. This is the one most people skip. They research, they plan, they get everything set up perfectly, and then they wait for the right moment to actually begin. The right moment is not coming. The right moment is a story we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of starting something uncertain. So start uncertain, start small, start with the minimum viable version of whatever you're building. A freelance profile with one service listed, a first video that isn't perfect, a first email to a potential client that feels awkward to send. Done imperfectly beats planned perfectly every single time. Because done things can be improved. Planned things stay plans forever. Step 4. Build the skill that protects you regardless, even if you never build a second income, even if the side hustle doesn't work out. The skills we talked about earlier, communication, sales, leadership, problem solving, these protect you inside your job as much as outside it. The person in any organization who can communicate clearly, build relationships, and solve problems that other people struggle with is rarely the first one to get the call on a Tuesday afternoon, because they are genuinely hard to replace. Not impossible, but hard, and hard to replace means you have time. Time to see what's coming, time to adapt, time to build the next thing before the current thing disappears. Invest in those skills now, not when you need them, because when you need them is too late to start. Step 5. Change what normal means to you. This is the one that ties everything together, and it's the one that takes the longest. Right now, your normal is probably built around your job, the rhythm of your week, the security of a paycheck, the identity of being employed somewhere. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I am saying that normal needs to expand. Normal needs to include building something. Normal needs to include investing. Normal needs to include thinking about where you want to be in 5 years and making at least one decision every week that moves you toward it. Because the people who get caught out by change are almost always the ones for whom normal never included preparing for it. They assumed things would stay the same. They built their life around an assumption. And when the assumption broke, they had nothing else. Don't be that person. Not because it's dramatic, not because collapse is inevitable, but because you have the ability right now to build something that means you never have to find out what happens if it all falls away. That is not pessimism. That is the most optimistic thing I can offer you. The belief that what you do today can protect you from whatever comes tomorrow. That you are not just a passenger in your own financial life. That you have agency, real, concrete, actionable agency. Starting with the next decision you make. Here's what I want to leave you with today. A stable job is not enough anymore. Not because work is bad, not because employment is over, but because the world has changed in ways that reward people who build and leave behind people who only show up. You are watching this video, which means you are already doing something different from most people. Most people are not asking these questions. Most people are assuming things will work out. You are not assuming, you are preparing. And that difference, right now, in this moment, is everything. Start with one skill. Find 5 hours, build something small, and keep going when it feels slow. Because slow progress on the right path is infinitely better than standing still on a path that is disappearing beneath your feet. I'm Carl, and I'll see you in the next one.